Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Tuesday, September 8th, 2015 City Council meeting. At this time, I will call the meeting to order and will be led in prayer by Pastor Carl Van Voorst from the Hope for Life Community Church.
Okay, before we offer prayer, just a couple verses here from a leader from the past, Solomon. And he says here, "Blessed is a man who finds wisdom, the man who gains understanding, for she is most profitable, or more profitable than silver and yields better returns than gold. She is more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare with her." So again, wisdom is so important. Let us pray. Gracious God, Lord, again, we just thank you for these leaders that are willing to lead our city, Father, and we just pray that you will indeed grant them the wisdom that they need to make the decisions that are before them. Father, we just thank you for this city of Watertown. It is a great place to live, and there's many good things that are going on and happening, Father, and we just pray for your directing hand to continue to be with us, and Lord, we just pray your blessing upon this city and its leaders. Lord, we ask too that you'll be with the medical profession, with the police department, law enforcement, with the fire department, Lord, with the schools, Father, and we just pray for the churches of this city. And then most of all, Lord, just bless its people and continue to walk with us and help us to honor you in all that we do, Lord. Again, thank you for your involvement in our lives. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thanks, Pastor Carl. At this time, Shelley, if you could do roll call for us.
Albertson.
Here.
Bueller.
Here.
Danforth.
Here.
Manty. Here. Riefenberger, absent. Roby.
Here.
Solom.
Here.
Thorson.
Here.
Tupper.
Here.
Vilhauer.
Here.
Thank you.
Well, you guys don't know how hard it is for me not to say here. You know, after when my name was called for 4 years, I would always say here. So, moving on. I do have number one here before our consent agenda is the proclamation and presentation on Start by Believing campaign, the Beacon Center. If you want to come up and sit there, I'll read the proclamation, and then there'll be a few questions for you. So this is from the Office of the Mayor, Watertown, South Dakota, Start by Believing Public Awareness Campaign. Whereas the City of Watertown shares a critical concern for victims of sexual violence and a desire to support their needs for justice and healing. And whereas the research committee estimates that as many as 1 in 5 women and 1 in 71 men are the victim of sexual assault in their lifetimes, yet most will not report the crime to law enforcement. And whereas research documents that victims are most likely to disclose their sexual assault to a friend or family member, and when these loved ones respond with doubt, shame, or blame, victims suffer additional negative effects on their physical and psychological well-being. And whereas the Start by Believing Public Awareness Campaign, a program of End Violence Against Women International, is designed to improve the responses of friends, family members, and community professionals so they can help victims to access supportive resources and engage the criminal justice system. Now, therefore, I, Steve Thorson, Mayor Steve Thorson, on behalf of the City of Watertown, hereby proclaim in concert with the Watertown Police Department and the Beacon Center our shared support of the Start by Believing Public Awareness Campaign.
I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time and letting us speak tonight. I am with Dawn Sinkink, our Executive Director. I'm Angie Masonberg, the Rural Outreach Coordinator here at the Beacon Center. It is our honor and great privilege to be here in Watertown and to serve the citizens of Watertown. As part of our work at the Beacon Center, we are part of a Watertown area sexual assault response team, which consists of many different disciplines from the Watertown Police Department, Prairie Lakes Healthcare Systems, State's Attorney's Office, Sheriff's Department, just all the people who would be activated in case of a sexual assault. We as a team work together to make sure we're responding the best way possible and making sure justice is served for our victims. Part of our process of making that happen is to have public awareness campaigns, and that is what Start by Believing is about. We are taking this campaign to all 5 counties that the Beacon Center serves to ask for proclamations from the leaders just like yourselves. We're hoping that by doing this campaign, we will make it a more safe environment for victims to come forward. All too often, I hear horror stories of victims who have reported to friends or family, and instead of being supported, they've been asked, what were you wearing? Were you drinking? Why didn't you run? Why didn't you fight harder? And that response closes down a victim and makes it more likely that they're not going to report to law enforcement. We have handed out the brochure that goes along with the campaign, and you can see that 1 failed report results in 5 more assaults. So it's very important that these victims feel comfortable to come forward and report. And we are lucky in our community. We have great law enforcement officers that want to help these victims. And that's why we're all working together to put this campaign forward. So I thank you for taking the time to make the proclamation in support of it.
Thank you for being here. We absolutely appreciate the efforts that you folks make. Today, it was interesting. I had a chance to talk to the first graders at Jefferson School. And one of the things that they asked, what makes Watertown great? And it's actually people like you that really help us out and does make Watertown great. So thanks for being here for everybody.
Thank you for
Thanks.
starting by believing.
Thank you.
I do have this for you. Okay, we'll get moving on here. Number 2, the approval of the consent agenda. I need a motion and a second for discussion. Any? Motion by Randy, second by Don. Any changes, any questions you have on it? Hearing none, go ahead.
I just want to clarify, on 2F, the term of that lease, it is for the 2015 crop year, not the 2016 crop year?
Yeah, what this is that John had the property, John passed, so it's moving to his son Chris, I believe.
But it's 2015 now.
It's just the 2015 season, yep.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 3, approve of the agenda. I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Bruce, second by Mike. Any questions, any changes on this? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 4, application for the ownership transfer of a retail on-off sale malt beverage license from GAT Inc. doing business at Sportsman's Inn Casino at 2301 North Highway 20 to Judith Allen doing business as Lake Stop 20 at the same location. At this time, I will open the public hearing if there's anyone that wants to speak in favor of or against this. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Beth, second by John. Any questions?
Just where is this location? Is that the convenience store along the Highway 20 there?
Across from the airport.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I'm
Right.
recusing myself from this vote.
Okay. Any other questions on this? Yes, 4 Seasons. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 5, second reading of ordinance number 15-20, amending section 21.5414, defining the building construction requirements in the Gateway Overlay District within and for the city of Watertown. At this time, I will open the public hearing if anyone wants to speak in favor of or against this. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. I will look for a motion and a second for discussion.
So moved.
So,
Motion by Mike, second by Glenn. Any questions on this?
Well, I'm just gonna, it's really more of a concern, and it's not a great concern, but, I think we're making a fairly significant change to this in regards to the materials and the color schemes that can be done on that area, and I don't disagree with that change. The one thing I do question, though, is when it's subject to the approval of the building official, and because now we're really putting that solely in the hands of a person, and that person is gonna change over time. And are we going to get consistency when that's the type of system that we have? What we're really saying is, in this case, it's Ken, correct? Ken, what do you think? Because if we feel good to or not, well, all of a sudden Ken retires, and now it's somebody else, and they may be doing something, their feelings just might be sizably different. So that's just my only concern, is that when we're making a fairly significant change to the original requirements, and we're putting it now all into one person's hands. It's just a comment.
Well, I think that's a great comment, and I guess I really never thought of it that way. But if you kind of take a look back, and, the people that are going to do a project are going to bring that in front of the planning commission, maybe that's where we need to take a bit of a look at it at that time, so the planning commission has a better feel of what the siding is going to look like, what the size, the heights, and things like that. A lot of that is restricted, the heights on it, but the looks of this building could change over time, and you're absolutely right. Then, if Kenny's not there, who's going to do it? Are we going to have Tim looking at it? And Tim might look at it a little differently than Ken. Right, Tim? Right.
I agree, Mayor. I think that there needs to be some sort of check and balance there, and I do believe that would be appropriate to refer those changes to the planning commission.
And we have time to revise this. Maybe we should take a peek at this on our Tuesday morning meeting and just kind of go through that again before we actually finish it up, or what are you saying?
I think it's really just a procedural issue. It's not the changes itself that we're making. I feel confident that we're making the right changes. Procedurally, I just don't like it when we have somebody that we put it into one person's hands as to what they feel is appropriate for that area for materials or coloring or whatever it is. So I think somewhere along the line, I think that has to get worked out, and the balance of it I'm fine with.
Yeah, and I think during our Public Works meetings on every Tuesday morning that we will look at these, and they'll be coming in front of us. And I think we should make a conscious effort to make sure that it is consistent with what we want. So I say let's move forward with this, and then we can definitely look at each individual, and I think we'll be all right, Mike.
Do we need to write that into this ordinance? Stan?
If you do want to, can you hear me?
Barely.
If you do want to amend this at second reading, one proposed change would be in item 1 where it says all exterior surfaces on any buildings or structure shall be presented to the building official, who must refer any exterior surface request to the city council for approval. That's your check and balance. So
Perfect.
they present the exterior surface request to the building official, who's required then to refer it to you folks.
So do we need to,
You'd amend the ordinance at second
and could
reading.
it still go through now, or, because
Yep.
this is second reading?
Yeah, it could go through tonight, yes.
So are you suggesting with that language, Stanton, that every building that goes in there would come to us for final approval on what it looks like and what the colors are and such?
If I understood Bruce's comment, he wanted to.
No, I
Maybe it's who's.
I think city council would be sufficient. I don't know that it would need to come to this body.
Well,
This
well,
is,
Or, I'm sorry, I apologize.
How about our
Planning commission.
Our planning,
Sure.
how about more of our Public Works Committee, or even when we're in the meeting upstairs every Tuesday, there's a group of the entire city officials. There's fire, there's police, there's building inspectors, there's the city attorney, I'm there. I don't know if we need to go much further than that, would we?
couldn't we do this? Because we don't want to create any more work here for anybody who have to, but originally, nothing outside of the earth tones was allowed there. I mean, that wasn't even going to be considered, correct? So maybe what we should do is maybe what we say is, because if I come in and I've got an earth tone building, why should it go to anybody? That's what the original plan was, correct? Why don't we say instead of, let's put it still in as what it was written, but any exception to that go to the whatever committee. So
Planning
keep the plan commission, not this, but keep the original language in there, but any exceptions go to, that way they're not all coming to the plan commission or to the, no, let's make it easy for, what we're trying to do here is open it up from what it originally was, so let's deal with the exception, not all of them. That's, I guess, what I'm saying. And so maybe we just say that
You got any good ideas on how to write that?
How about this? This is just a shot, but item 1 then again could say, all exterior surfaces on any building or structure, unless earth tone in color, shall be presented to the building official, who must refer any non-earth tone exterior structure surface request to the plan commission for approval.
That's fine. My only question is it gonna take an additional 3 weeks for a developer to get something through? Because you know the planning commission doesn't meet that often. Whereas the meeting that we have upstairs meets every Tuesday.
Well,
That's my biggest concern, is it's gonna push somebody back another 3 weeks.
you know, I think one of the main reasons that we did this, or are making these changes, is for some of the corporate buildings that come in, they have their own colors, or corporate colors, which are oftentimes not earth tone. But, you know, many times in years past, when I was on the planning commission, if it was necessary, we'd hold a special meeting. Could whip it out at lunch if we had to.
Right, and we do a special meeting, Bruce, and it does cost an additional $250 for that person to hold that meeting. So do we put something out there that isn't going to cost them dollars for this?
I don't know, but I still like the idea of the planning commission. That's just my opinion. Reviewing those things.
So we could do that. We could have it on our special meetings with planning commission, but I really don't think it's fair to be charging them $250 for every special planning commission meeting. I don't know.
I would agree with that, Steve. I don't think that would be something we'd,
I think
in my opinion.
this is gonna be a very minimal situation. You know, you might run into it once or twice in the whole time that whole gateway is developed, but I kinda like Steve's idea because it just simplifies things. I seen a situation the other day, if it would've waited, we would've been digging up a road that just got repaved, so. So I think we need to simplify things and just be able to get them.
So I think really, in all reality, you know, the colors can be decided by the group of folks upstairs that represent really the planning commission without bringing the planning commission into play. I think they could represent it very well.
And I think the plan commission's got a lot more important thing to do than decide what color.
well,
on the
I think that it
exterior
might be
building.
more consistent too. I'm personally, I'm okay with it going up to your meeting, Mayor, and
Because all we're trying to do is
because
take,
the plan commission's already, they've looked at this adjustment in regards to the ordinance and are fine with the change in language. So I think for simplicity reasons and for sake of timing, oftentimes, I would go along with what the mayor is suggesting.
That
Personally.
would be what they have on mine is a planning and zoning meeting every Tuesday morning for the Public Works Conference Room. And if there's concerns on that, I think we can move it to that meeting. Is that
subjectivity
fair
out
enough
of it.
with you guys?
Makes-
So word it so that it works like that, so we'll amend this. Okay, so do you want to give us an idea how you want it reworded, and somebody can make
Okay,
that motion?
I don't remember what I've said the first 2 or 3 times, but
That's okay, I didn't hear you in the first
TV.
place.
all exterior surfaces on any building or structure, unless earth tone in color, shall be presented to the Planning and Zoning Committee for approval.
That's a good motion. So does somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion, and
No.
with the rest of the language that's within the
I'll second it.
ordinance change.
Okay, so I have Mike making that motion, Randy seconded. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. I think that was a good move. All right, number 6, second reading of ordinance number 1522, amending zoning district boundaries by rezoning property along North Lake Drive from R1 Single Family Residential District to RG Residential Garage District. At this time, I will open the public hearing if there's anyone that wants to speak in favor of or against this. Nobody?
Only if you have questions.
If you want to certainly talk about this, you're sure welcome to come up, folks. Just state your name and your concerns so that this body can hear it.
Jackie Loggy, homeowner or landowner. I guess nothing's on there right now.
Yeah, my name is Doug. Basically, what we do is we have a cabin on North Lake Drive, and right across from it, directly across from it, we have a lot, and we just like to build a garage. And we did talk to all the neighbors and had them sign a document that said that was okay, so we did get all approval from all of our neighbors, so there's no concerns that they said to us anyways.
And the planning commission didn't seem to have concerns either, so we're hoping that it'll go through.
Now, I'm not sure how to interpret this. I mean, there were a couple adjacent landowners that did not sign off on this.
Yeah, we turned it in before we could notify them because they don't live there full time, but we did talk to them, we did make contact with them, and everybody was on a, but yeah, there was 2 that we didn't talk to until after we turned in the.
And you're part of the request that's requesting this rezoning, that's correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Can Stan, can you remind us what the variations were on this again? It didn't meet the requirements of RG, but what were the variations?
I guess I can answer that. The lot sizes, if you just use the lot size itself, were approximately 0.75 acres, and they require 1 acre. But commonly, when we review these requests, we also include the area of the right-of-way to the center line in front of the properties. In that case, it brings that area to 1.1 acres. So we do meet that requirement. The other requirement is that it have a minimum of 300 feet of improved street frontage. In this case, they have 242 feet of improved street frontage on the North Lake Drive side. And we're thinking that if they'll easily meet all requirements if and when Pheasant Lane is improved. So we're thinking that 242 gets us close enough to the 300 with the idea that it'll be well over that limit when Pheasant Lane is improved. So those are the only 2 criteria.
Here's just a question. The trouble I have with it is we just established the RG district, what, a year ago? 2 years ago? I forgot. When was that?
Within the last 2 years, I
Yeah.
believe.
And is this an exception that is, we're already making exceptions to it? Maybe it's an exception we should make, but the concern I have is a precedent. We had the 300-foot section put in there, and looks like we're shortening that.
Okay, approximately a year ago, there was another case similar to this just down the road that was brought forward, and it was ultimately approved, and it met less of these requirements that we just stated. So we have already made 1 exception. This one is another exception in the 300-foot frontage rule, but it does meet the 1 acre rule.
Shane, was that approved by the city council?
Yes.
Was that rule in place at that time? Was that
Yes.
specification in place?
Yes.
What was Shane, did you look into that as to why, what the justification was for that? I mean,
The previous exception?
yeah,
I'd have to refer to staff. They were here when.
'cause I think
when
I know who
wasn't.
that was. I believe that was that Hested and such?
Jeff can maybe enlighten that he was on staff at the time.
Jeff Brink, urban planner. Last year, during the June 16th city council meeting, a similar case was brought forward, like Shane said, that
Right.
went through. And part of the reasonings for that, because that had a similar area instance where it was less than 1 acre until you included the right-of-way, and was less than 300 feet of frontage, but had the potential for more if Pheasant Lane were improved. But, do you want me to? I have the ordinance, yeah.
No, don't you have a picture of it? Can't you put that up there?
I can,
Yeah. I didn't mean to like break in on everybody.
sorry.
How about the Hested one is what I'm
Oh.
after, guys?
You have to go to.
I'll have to turn on,
Jeff, I'll get it.
okay. Tim will get it for us. And part of the last year's rezone that went through both Plan Commission and City Council, they didn't have sewer in that portion of Pheasant Lane. And normally within an R1 zone, you have to hook up to sewer and water, and just the difficulty of that helped lead the Plan Commission to say that, this rezone was appropriate because it would allow those lots that were otherwise undeveloped the ability to develop. Last year's rezone also needed a variance from the number of adjacent landowners signing off. Our ordinance reads that 100% of the immediately adjacent landowners have to sign off, which last year was 6, and they only received 5 of those signatures. It also states that they need 50% of landowners within 250 feet of the property. They met that requirement last year. And that's why on this year's request, you see a couple of blanks. Even with those blanks, they still meet the petition requirements, because 100% of the immediately adjacent landowners have signed it. And then there's 6 landowners that are within 250 feet, and 4 of them have signed, so that's still above the 50%. Yep.
We have last year's request on the screen. We can move it up to the other one when the discussion
Yeah,
warrants.
that request was that 651 North Lake Drive, that whole area right there, which is actually 3 lots. It's shown as 1 parcel because it's owned by 1 person, but it was actually 3 lots that was rezoned. This year's request is 2 lots owned by a couple different individuals. There, of course, the Loggies here that are planning on building on one of them, and their neighbor who also signed the petition to join the rezone.
Jeff, I'm sorry, can you sort of explain the sewer thing again? I mean, how that compelled us to,
Yeah, and if Shane will turn the sewer layer on his map, right there. This, as you see, the blue line is our sewer service, and it runs down Pheasant Lane part way. And if you would continue going west on that road, it stops. And so then farther west where the last year's rezone occurred, there wasn't the sewer in front of their lot, so which would have made it very difficult to construct a house since the house needs to be attached to sewer. So that was part of the Plan Commission's recommendation and council's action of approving it.
Can you show that Hested one again and show where that property was at? I didn't.
No, keep going. Right there. It's that one right there, the 651 North Lake Drive.
And what were the exceptions again on that one?
That one, the area of that lot is 0.94 acres, but when the right-of-way was included, it was 1.29 acres, and it was adjacent to approximately 125 feet of improved street frontage on North Lake Drive, but had the potential for 500 feet of street frontage if Pheasant Lane and Quail Street were both improved. And third, they needed 100% signatures of the immediate landowners, and they had 83%.
Any other questions for Jeff?
No, but it would appear to me like if we're gonna be using the right-of-way, we should be changing the language in that ordinance.
Let's change the ordinance so it
The-
matches up, otherwise we're gonna have exceptions left and right. So I think if we're gonna allow this, which it may be a good idea or bad idea, but whatever your opinion is, the thing I'm concerned about is we've got a new ordinance and it doesn't hold any weight.
And if I can explain that a little bit farther, under 21.10, we have our minimum lot sizes, and that's an individual lot, has to be above 5,000 square feet, but the actual district requirements in 21.2303 says the total area of the district, and that's where the one lot comes in, and that's where we include right away. So there's two different areas that we would look at, and first is the actual lot size, and that being a minimum of 5,000 square feet, which both this request and last year's request met that requirement. And then the total district size of being 1 acre, and that was implemented to avoid spot zonings of just a very small area. That's
Correct.
what that was.
I think the restrictions are to avoid doing one lot at a time for a rezone. We want it to be similar to about a half a block or a 2 or 3 lot zoning amendment rather than a lot by lot. And that's where these criteria were chosen.
So this actually covers 2 lots.
Yes.
2 good sized lots. One's a very good sized lot and the other one's probably a typical lot.
And again, this came by way of approval from the planning commission, did it not?
Yes, it did. They approved it via resolution 2015-30.
So it's big enough, the planning commission approved it. Where are we with the ordinance? Does the ordinance need to be adjusted?
We could evaluate the frontage requirement. I think the size requirement's probably about right. I just don't know where that 300 feet was comprised, because you'd actually have to improve about 2 sides of any lot to get to the 300-foot threshold. And that's not typical. Usually you have a street frontage on one side, so to get 1 acre and 300 feet is a difficult
And who
task.
knows if we'll ever see pheasant land?
That's
You know,
another
it's-
issue, yeah.
So I would suggest that maybe you take a look back at the minutes when that ordinance came in and see how, what was the discussion, how did 300 feet come into play? And maybe we should look at that if it's an issue.
Yeah, I don't personally have a problem with the request, but I do have the same concern that Don has, and that is there's a fair amount of time coming to the language and specifications within that ordinance, and it has now come before us twice, and neither time have we followed the ordinance. That's probably a bigger concern to me than this request.
Sure.
quite honestly.
Yeah, that's
I
easy.
think we do need to take a look at it to see is there some changes that have to occur in order to get this to be a usable ordinance for us to go by.
My staff and I agree.
Perfect.
Just
Any
as
other,
a note, just
go
as a
ahead.
note, I've talked to 2 people that live on North Lake Drive who love this idea of building this garage out there along with the one Hested had, and would like to get property on the other side to do the same thing themselves. So looking at the ordinance might be a good idea. And I know the Plan Commission, I sat in on that meeting, and they wrestled with it, as you folks know, they wrestled with it, and Todd's explanation probably, or Jeff's explanation probably soothed them enough to pass it.
Anybody other questions while the public hearing is still open? Thank you, folks. At this time, I will close the public hearing, and I will look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Mike, second by Beth. Any other questions on this for Shane or for Jeff? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, folks. So Shane, you will take a look at that along with the preliminary plans and stuff put that down in your notebook, that This is one to look at.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, while you're sitting in the ice shack. Okay. Moving on, number 7, first reading of ordinance number 15-23, amending the zoning district boundaries by zoning property south of 14th Avenue North to R2 multifamily residential district. I will look for a motion and a second for discussion purposes.
First reading.
Oh, I'm sorry. First reading. I should. So Shane, go ahead and fill us in a little bit what's going on anyhow, will you?
Okay, Ray's put the image up on the screen. This was brought in, annexation previously to this council meeting, and it wasn't rezoned at the time, so we've, bringing this forward with the recommendation to zone it R2 for multifamily residential district. It fits, there's R3 bounding it to the east, and city buffer owned land immediately behind it with R1 on the remaining sides. So it does fit with the land use in the area, and it was recommended by the planning commission to be rezoned as R2.
So if the council has any questions, I'll go ahead and allow questions on this first reading anyhow, if you'd like. Anything for Shane?
I don't have any question, but I was at that meeting also, and the conversation really stemmed about that R2 and what that would look like. And I think the Plan Commission was assured the people at that meeting, and there were several again, that they would know what's being planned to be put in there, so they don't end up with something that is not, it looks similar to what we had before. So I think the Plan Commission said they would be more than
Correct.
happy to let the residents in Cherry Creek know what's going on, what's being planned, and what it's gonna look like. So I think they have that pretty well covered because they said they would. So.
Well, yes, because what's required now is they'll have to come forward with a preliminary plan and a plat for this area. So there'll be at least one more opportunity, if not two, for public hearings throughout this process.
Shane, I see the single family. Can you show me where you don't have to bring up a new map, but can you just show me where the other multifamily or other zoning is on
Well,
there? You
the-
said there was different.
Yeah, the properties immediately to the east along 14th Avenue,
Okay.
kind of in this area here, those are all R3 currently.
And straight to the south of where your pool cue is, that's R2, right?
R1. This is R2? So, okay,
Yeah, that's R2.
yep, and these are
That's
R1.
Yeah.
Yep.
Shane, would you explain what the significance is? I was at that planning commission as a spectator. What's the significance of extending it to the center of 14th Avenue? Do you want to address that?
That is the current city limits line.
Okay.
So when that property was annexed in, it had to go to the center line of the road. And ultimately, the plat will dedicate one half of the road right away to the city when it's approved.
One other comment that I'd make, and Dan, you were probably just about to make it, at the Plan Commission, when they approved this, they made clear that under no circumstance would an administrative plat be allowed to be approved at that location. So if there was an attempt to plat 5 or fewer lots there, no matter, it couldn't be approved administratively. It has to come back to the Plan Commission.
How does that get controlled? What if we're 10 years down the road? Who's going to remember that? How does that get controlled? We have the ability to administer or do an administrative plat, correct? And let's say we annex this in, we zone it, and nothing happens for years and years and years, and now we're 10 or 15 years down the road, and nobody remembers that how are we going to control that an administrative plat cannot occur on that land?
When we record the annexation resolution, we could include that language in there. Or, I mean, there's any number of ways we could put it in the chain of title so that God and everyone would know moving forward that administratively approved plats aren't available on this property.
I think that's a good idea. I think you should move forward with that then. Okay.
So, quick question. Once that's annexed in, how do you handle snow removal on a split street like that?
Well, I think even before it was annexed in, the city street crew cleared the improved portion of the street.
I like that, Bruce. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so I'm going to move on to number 8, first reading of ordinance number 15-24, 2016 city budget. Shelley, this is, when you miss a meeting like that in the morning, we're going to just throw this stuff at you and say, this is you.
That's fine.
That's okay.
I can take it. As you can see, this is first reading. This is the appropriation ordinance. As you will also remember, enterprise funds, you won't see them on the ordinance. By state statute, we're not required to officially adopt a budget by ordinance, but their budgets do get approved at the same time, and we kind of hold them to those. So you'll see that it's laid out by function, and then how the money will be spent in what different funds goes across the top. And also, if you will look at page 3, in the third page, it talks about the total capital outlay accumulation of just over $1 million. That's kind of based on the equipment needs that came out of the long-term capital and equipment replacement process we went through. As you also remember, when we went through the 2016 budget process, the general fund, and I went back and redid the calculations, and it's just at a little over $450,000 that will be anticipated to be taken out. We didn't have a whole lot of change from the 2015 budget, so that roughly $53,000 will come out of that reserve line item if we don't have other revenue sources that will come in. So that's also anticipated in here, and that's kind of how we account for that. If you guys have any specific questions, per state statute, we have to have a budget adopted by September 30th, and we have to have our certification of property taxes to the county. That's on that very last page. For the general fund, $3,279,490 is what we're allotted by the funding formula, and then the GO bond is the $492,000, and that's by bond covenant that we have to collect 105% of the principal and interest payment for the coming year. So if you guys have any questions, I can answer it. Otherwise, the second reading and adoption will be at our next meeting, the 21st-ish.
So the documents that exist today reflect all the changes we've all agreed to date, correct?
Yes, I went through, and they should reflect the changes that were made from those meeting minutes.
I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but on that same page that you just referred to, Shelley, I know we had this conversation at our budget hearing. On the Upper Big River Water Project Fund, there was $50,000 that was a duplication, which was taken out the second night of our hearing. But there was also $33,000 that was budgeted to be coming in from the Lake Compesco Water Project District. That was at our hearings. Now I see that is not in this document. Now, is that correct?
That is correct. At the meeting, Roger had alluded that also, because we did a carryover of the same 3-year funding period, that would also not come in. So yes, we did remove that. And as you can see, there is still a good portion of fund balance that's left to cover any expenses that they have, so.
Okay, any other questions for Shelley on that, since it is first reading? Hearing none, I think we'll just move forward Go to number 9, approval of the 2015 update to the long-term equipment replacement schedule and capital projects plan. Shelley, you got something on that, do you? That
Just, I had sent out the long-term capital plan that should reflect any of the changes that were made. Again, by adopting this, it doesn't put anything down in stone. It's just, it's kind of one of those little playbooks that the mayor and the department heads can use, and we kind of build on it for future meetings. So if anybody has any questions or concerns, or there's something that you guys had in your notes that is not reflected in this long-term capital plan, we can go through that.
I'm just curious, it reads 2015, is that the correct date on there?
Yeah, because we're in 2015 right now,
Okay.
and so it goes through the plan 17
Okay,
and beyond.
Let's go for a motion and a second then for discussion.
So moved.
Motion by Randy, second by John. Any questions that you have for Shelley on that? Hearing none, I will look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 10, authorization for the mayor to sign a swimming pool agreement with the Watertown School District for the 2015-2016 school year. This is something that we've done every single year for the last 6 that I can remember. So I would look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Beth, second by Mike. Any questions we have on that?
Is the rate the same as it's always been?
I believe it is.
I thought it used to be a 2-year plan, it's just 1 year at a time now? Did it used to be 2, or am I, always been 1? Okay.
Mayor, I have a question. The timeframe, we got 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Chosen by the school district for its swimming curriculum. I'm assuming that's every day, every school
Yeah.
day?
Yep.
Is that the same as it's been?
That's,
Is that-
yeah, nothing has changed.
Nothing's changed?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
I do have a question. At the top, it says 22,000. Down farther, it says 20,000. Are those supposed to be the same?
Yeah, we're not talking about the same thing.
Okay.
I have one more I'm sorry, John, if you're not done. Does the school say anything what their intentions are at this point with the pool going down the road here?
They have not. It's been really a work in progress on that. They haven't really said what their intents are, or I don't think we've even flat out said what our intentions are yet.
Thank
So
you.
that should come pretty soon to a head. That'll happen next year. I think John was mistaken on that. You guys need anything else on that? Okay. I didn't want to publicly say that John was mistaken, but John was.
John Solom? You talking about John Solom?
Yeah, John Sol.
I feel like I'm at home.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, everybody, and John, you especially. Number 11, authorization for the mayor to sign an EPA 319 grant application for the Upper Big Sioux Watershed Project. Roger, if you want to fill us in a little bit on that?
Sure, good evening. Again, my name's Roger Foote. I'm the coordinator of Upper Big Sioux River Watershed Project. It's that time of season again where our 3-year grant is coming to a close, even though we've extended it one further year. The end of that will be in July of 16. It's time to start the process for the next segment to continue on from July 16 for the next 3 years. We're asking permission to sign the grant. Right now, we're looking at a total funding package close to $1 million. There's still a lot of questions to answer before we get to the final bit of that. But that's pretty much where we're at.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion
So
purposes.
moved.
Motion by, who was it?
Glenn, I got it.
Glenn, second by Dan. Any questions that you have for Roger?
Not a question, but as long as you're up there, Roger, we want to talk about the watershed tour coming up. I know we're off topic here a little bit, but
On the 22nd, yes. I believe the entire council has gotten invitations to that. That should be a nice 4-hour cruise through the watershed area. We're going to look at some practices that we've assisted landowners with constructing, rotational grazing, an ag waste system, some waterways and buffer strips and things of that nature that the taxpayers of Watertown have contributed to help clean the water before it gets to the Big Sioux River and before it gets to Watertown.
Roger, the grant request, would that be then for the fiscal years of 16, 17, and 18, or is it, you said it's a 3-year,
A 3-year program is what we're asking for.
so that starts for 16?
That would, well, depending how everything comes together, it should start in July of 16 and run for 3 consecutive years. The DNR and EPA fiscal year and our grant cycle always seems to run at odds to the city's budget cycle. For some reason, just my life is complicated. But yes, for 3 consecutive years beyond that. And depends on how quickly the EPA gets to it and gets things signed. Sometimes it'll be sooner than that, sometimes it'll be later than that, by months or right on the money.
And the grant request that you're submitting is for $1 million over those 3 years?
No, the grant request that we're putting in is for 60% of, if I can come up with, the match that I can come up with locally from the city. I'm gonna ask the utilities again, I'm gonna ask Compesca again to contribute. I'm gonna take that money, and that will be 40% of the total funding package, and we'll ask the EPA for 60% to match our 40%. How things really work out as to funding availability is always questionable, and we won't know the answer to that until the non-point source task force meeting in Pier in sometime in December. And they'll decide how much money they have available to contribute to each of the projects that are asking for funds. Let me tell you, it's entertaining living 3 years at a time.
Okay. Most of these guys know what 4 years at a time is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
all right, well, thank you.
All right. Okay, no other questions on that? I will look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Good luck with that, Raj. Number 12, authorization for the mayor to sign a landlord's consent to assignment agreement with Home Federal Bank for airport property leased to JMS Precisions Incorporated. Stanton, I'll go ahead and let you fill them in on this.
Okay. This landlord's consent is similar to those the council has approved in the past. 2 that come to mind are the fixed-based operator at the airport and verifications. Under the terms of this consent, the city, as the landlord, agrees that if the borrower, JMS Precision, were ever to default under the lease of the land that it has at the airport, then the lender, which is Home Federal Bank, would have the ability to reassign the lease to a new tenant. So under this consent, Home Federal would never assume any liability under the lease that JMS has with the city. That would always remain with JMS Precision. But I have reviewed the terms of this proposed landlord's consent, and given its consistency with others that the council's approved in the past, I recommend the council authorize the mayor to sign it. Thank you.
So at this time, what I'll do is I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Mike, second by Randy. Any questions you have for Stanton?
Is this a one-time deal, or is this an annual thing, or period, what is it?
It's for as long as the lease is in place, yep. I mean, until there's a reassignment, or as you folks know, that the city's in the process of attempting to get this property released. Once that happens, then the lease is gonna be extinguished and there'll be no longer a need for this landlord's consent, because we won't be the landlord anymore. JMS Precision will be the actual owner of the land they're leasing.
And we would expect the airport to release this within the next month to 2 months, because I think we've been in contact with them, and they have told us that they're ready to release this property.
So
I
this-
wouldn't expect it'll last.
So it's an interim document between the use of the land now and the sale of the land?
It's a security interest for the lender, yep.
Okay.
Okay, I believe I have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 13, authorization for the mayor to sign a joint powers and maintenance and encroachment agreement with the Department of Transportation for the Highway 81 project. Shane, you want to handle this one?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. This is a fairly standard agreement. The city enters this type of agreement on maintenance and encroachments with DOT projects anytime they do a highway segment within the city. Couple highlights would be down under item 4, well, item 2 for one. The improvement on US 81 is from 3rd Avenue Northeast to 18th Avenue Northeast. Essentially, you know, the north quarter of the Highway 81 through town. Jumping down to item 4, there's real dollars that the city would commit to paying with an upgrade to LED style street lighting versus the standard street lighting that we have here in town, and that cost is estimated at $32,194. Then jumping forward into 5C and D, it talks about costs that the city would have to pay, and in reality, that's costs that the municipal utility company has to pay for. But since the state doesn't enter agreements with utility companies per se, they have to have the agreement come through the city council, and then we subsequently will bill the utilities for their portion of the work. So the utility company at this point has a estimated cost of water main improvements of $243,862. And in item C, what that paragraph is explaining is if that dollar amount, when they get bids, exceeds the 243 number, that the city pay those costs. And of course, there again, we would transfer those costs onto the utility company. And then further,
Shane, on those
Yep.
costs, I'm assuming that utilities has been a part of reviewing this agreement.
correct,
and
they
our
actually,
understanding.
they actually did the cost estimate that generated the 243 number, so. Then looking down at item G under 5, it talks about testing requirements. There again, the state does the moisture and density tests on the trenches and so forth, and then those costs will be passed on to the city, who we ultimately will pass on to the utility company there again. So then items 6 and 7 talk about standard maintenance and policing encroachments and other activities, and we've already signed into those other agreements, so we just follow the standard language in those agreements going forward as well. So with that, I guess what we're recommending as staff is that the city agree to sign this document with approval from the utility board, because they really have the true investment in this project, and we want to run that by their utility board as well.
Right, I'll make a comment on that in a minute. For right now, though, I will look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Mike, second by John. One of the things that we did have a discussion with today with the utilities is exactly what Shane just said. We would prefer to see this go through the utility board so that they know exactly what I would be signing. I will not sign this until we have their okay. Fair enough? Okay, so I will, any other questions on it?
Shane, what's the schedule on the project?
It will be let sometime this fall and start construction in the spring, I believe.
Of next year?
Yeah.
And with completion in fall of next year?
Yes.
Amen.
And this,
It'll be done after the 19th Street project.
and this does include signal lights at 10th Avenue, correct?
Yes.
Yes, third maybe a partial, and 10th and 14th, I believe.
I have a quick question on the LED lights.
Is that something that's gonna work in this northern area?
Well, if the utility company's doing an experiment right now with some LED lighting, and it appears to be the wave of the future, I'm not qualified to answer how efficient it is at this climate.
I think if I may, Brad, one of the concerns that's been with LED lighting is ones that are up on top because they don't heat up enough to get the ice off of them. So you lose your glow, I should say. But what we're looking here is these are on the downside, so you really won't have the ice accumulate underneath, which will affect it. That's what I've understood.
So it's an experiment.
But we do have an experiment on the roundabout this year with that same type of lighting.
Okay.
So if we do find an issue with it, I would think, Shane, you would have that opportunity to change that.
Yeah, we could always go back to standard lighting if need be.
Yeah, there you go. Better watch that. I'll put you in your corner in your room or something like that, you know, no Xbox or anything. It's all good. Okay, I do have a motion and a second on the floor. And any more other questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 14, consideration of change order number 1 to the contract with Deutsche Excavating LLC for the Roby Creek Storm Sewer Project, increasing the contract amount $19,250.21. Shane, go ahead on this. We've had many discussions on it.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, this is a very sizable change order for this style of project. I will say that I, without a doubt, believe that every dollar is an investment that we needed to make. Two things have happened on this project. One, during project development, we kind of evaluated the curb along a portion of 6th Avenue, I believe it is. And of course, a year plus time passes between initiation of design and final plans and actually construction. And at that time, some of that curb and gutter was a little bit questionable, and now that we're at construction time has further been deteriorated. It's basically sloughing off into the drainage ditch, which we're improving. So we determined that it warranted a more extensive curb construction work. And then also where Roby Creek crosses the major intersection on this project, once we got the roadway open, it was just the ugliest, wet, mucky goo. You wouldn't, you could build really good walls with it, just packing it like you would on the sand beach. I tell you, it was just so sloppy and icky. But so we evaluated it. We wanted to over excavate around the pipe and make sure that we got it backfilled with solidly with some crushed concrete bedding. And so we decided that that was the best way to rebuild that road, so we didn't have to come back and fix it multiple times in its lifetime. So we authorized that fix, and percentage-wise, it's a pretty good-sized change order, but I think it's gonna pay out in the long run, so we don't have to fix this road over and over.
Okay, thanks, Shane. What I'll do now is look for a motion and a second for discussion.
So moved.
Motion by Dan, second by Don. Any questions that you have for Shane on this?
I would like to add a comment. Before I did entertain improving or bringing this work forward, I did evaluate this year's construction budgets and so forth with Shelley, and we do have enough project savings on other projects this summer to more than cover for this dollar amount.
Perfect. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Shane. Number 15, consideration of change order number 1, which is a final to the contract with McLaughlin and Schultz Incorporated for the Alley Improvement Project, decreasing the contract amount by $4,502.27. Shane, you want to touch on that for us?
Yeah, this is just our standard final change order adjustment of quantities on the project. It did run under the projected quantities, which created a $4,500 deficit. So we're essentially decreasing the amount of work accordingly. The final contract then becomes $52,015.73. So it's a
Okay,
good
thanks.
project done under budget.
All right, thanks, Shane. I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Mike, second by Beth. Any questions you have for Shane? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 16, consideration of change order number 1, which is a final to the contract with American Fence Company for the Bramble Park Zoo fencing project, increasing the contract amount $643.76. Go ahead, Shane.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Again, this is the final adjustment of quantities change order. The quantities were very close to planned quantities, didn't create much of a change from the initial bid. So the final project would be $82,287.76. I believe we have no issues with covering that dollar amount.
Okay, I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by John, second by Glenn. Okay, any questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 17, consideration of change order number 1 to the contract with Dunick Incorporated for the golf course improvement project, increasing the contract amount by $15,533. We have on my right here the chairman of the golf committee that we set up for the change of the yellow holes, number 2 through 9 and red number 1. And also Jay is on board. Jay, if you want to come up, and I'm sure between the two of you, we can get this baby worked out.
Well, I'd like to, Jay, if it's okay, I just want to start off and just give one explanation on this. The budget that was established for this project was $551,000, and within that budget, there was not an amount, which there normally would be, allocated for a reserve and a contingency reserve for those things that would be unknown that would be coming. So when we went out and had this thing bid the second time, we took out a number of items that we felt very strongly that they needed to be within this project if the project could afford it. So the contract price then, once we removed those items, was the $522,500, and we felt that so we've got a $30-some thousand, call it a cushion. That's our contingency fund that we established by elimination of some of these items on what we thought would be a temporary basis. We are now to a point that we are past the highest risk area of this project, of the unknowns, because all 9 greens, 8 of the 9 greens have had their preliminary work and a lot of secondary work done on the layout and design of the greens. And the 9th one is in the process of being done. Approximately half of the greens, which is the next step, have the root, what do they call it, root mix?
Root zone mix.
Root zone mix, and that's the very critical part of what makes up a green and makes it perform. So we are, all the things that you may find underground, some of the design changes that occur as they know better measurements and such, we feel very comfortable now that we're able to go and back into those items that we took out with the intention of building them back in and start to add them back in as the project continues and as we know our costs better. So that's really what this is. And when it's all said and done, we feel very, very strongly that we're going to be within the budgeted amount. But this addition here is bringing back in a portion of what we eliminated with the expectation of putting it back in. So that's why we're coming back.
Have you
today.
got anything you want to add to that, Jay?
No, that's correct. Primarily, it's sod and then silt fence for stormwater pollution protection.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a motion and a second for discussion on this. Motion by Beth, second by Bruce. Any questions that you have for Jay or Mike? Anybody?
Jay, do you want to talk about the anticipated deductions and additions that we'll be seeing? So just to give them a heads up where we're at.
Yes, as we go forward from this initial change order, the window for the project is very small. In 2.5 weeks, the project should be completely finished, and there may be some additional change orders that probably in the $5,000 to $7,000 range after meeting with the contractors today is what we're looking at right now. That may change somewhat, but, you know, just looking for some type of solution as we go on that we can just keep the project moving, being we are so time sensitive if there are additional change orders that are needed before we can get to another council meeting.
What we need to be able to do is we need to keep the project going, knowing that we're gonna stay within budget and then be adding the items back in based on priority and based on need. So, in the future, what you're gonna see is you're gonna see some change order requests that it's already been done. Similar to what happens on street projects sometimes. You gotta keep things going. So, but, you know, knowing or having the assurances that we're gonna be within the budget that this council already approved. And so we'll be adding those items back in. There will be some deductions. We went through this extensively today. We feel we'll be at or maybe just under budget, but it'll be very close. But you'll see some future change orders coming as well, positive and negative, but that will be, you know, we're going to be blessing that based on the work already being done because we have to keep the crew going.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any other questions you have for these guys?
I don't necessarily have a question about this, but Jay, I hope you take a candid picture or pictures of hole number 1 on red, just so people can see. And I know Stanton has told us that we have no recourse on how that was built, and maybe others are going to be like that. But there's a situation out there right now where it's absolutely unbelievable, maybe, what that was built on. It cakes off in pieces, and it's supposed to grow grass, and there's a little bit left, and that's going to be taken care of, but it cakes off in pieces that are rocks.
Oh, definitely.
It's just, I mean, it's as hard, you couldn't grow grass, you couldn't grow anything on it other than mold, and yet here we've built a green, and everybody wondered why in the world we couldn't grow grass on it. You know, you'd water it, well, couldn't possibly be a root system, but, so I think maybe even some pictures, I know there's probably no recourse, but it really is significantly bad business.
Well, I will tell you, and Dan, and that's an excellent point, and we didn't know how bad it was until we started tearing that green apart and doing core samples and stuff, and it is literally like concrete. And, but I will tell you that the first meeting we had with our architect was probably a 3 or 4 hour meeting, and the poor guy, when he left there, the first 2 hours was beating him up on that these are gonna be done right, and we're not gonna have this problem. I mean, like we told him, we've been through this, and it's not gonna happen again. And we got a different architect, and we have a different firm than was used years ago, and the measurements and data are taken on that root, what'd you call that, the root something?
Root zone mix.
Root zone mix. That's the very, very critical part, and it wasn't done properly the first time. And so it will be done properly, or somebody's gonna be in trouble.
Mike, who is the final sign-off person, I guess, that has the responsibility for?
If anything goes bad, it comes out of Jay's pay.
I mean, the root
Yeah.
zone mix?
No,
No, the
that-
overall project.
It's all
the
through your
grade's being
architect, is it
installed
not?
properly.
Go ahead and say that.
Well, the one thing that, and I can't tell you if this happened before, but the formula for the root zone content was established, and then it was sent to a lab to confirm. And then as they're mixing, they send samples to the lab to confirm that it's exactly what was agreed upon. And I can't tell you if that ever happened before or not. My guess is it didn't. So in the end, what do we have, a 1 year warranty with the?
I think it's 2.
Is it 2 years? 1 or 2 years with the architect and the builder, so. But they'll have all the data
Where
for all
we
the.
end up getting the sand?
I have no idea. There's several places that they can get that.
Well,
There
there
is-
was
there
a
is a
question
couple of
whether we had to
different
get it from
sand,
Sioux
um,
Falls or whether we could get it from
Actually, we got it
McLaughlin's.
through Brookings, LG Everest and Brookings.
Okay.
And they're doing the testing, and it's consistently falling well within the specifications.
I think people are gonna be extremely happy with that golf course next year when they get out there. A couple subtle changes that you've done, change on the way the ball rolls, and, yeah, I think you guys have done a great job.
We need to invest in some kind of fencing along the side, some nets that keep my golf ball into the fairway a little bit more.
We could probably do that.
We haven't seemed to have a
Yeah.
problem with that.
All right, I've got a motion and a second on the floor. If there's no more questions, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Yeah, thanks, Jay, for
Thank
doing
you.
this. This is, I know I've been out there about 4 times, and boy, if you just miss a couple of days, you miss a lot that's going on.
You certainly do.
Yeah, I would encourage all of you, if you get a chance, go out and jump on a golf cart and take a look at it. It's well worth it. But just go in and ask Levi for a key. He'll let you go out there as a council person. You own those carts. Yeah. Yep. Okay, number 18, consideration of bids received to replace up to 17 early warning sirens. Don, you're up. Good to see you.
Thank you, Mayor. We are here tonight to look at the 2 bid tabs that we received for the early warning sirens. The first set of bid tabs are exactly for the sirens. There's basically August 26th is when we open the bids up at 10 a.m. The first bid that came in was from Danco Emergency Equipment, and they actually are the dealer for Federal Signal, the current system we have right now. As you can see, the 8 bid price there was $116,451, and the second bid that we received was from American Signal Corporation, and that bid was at $114,226.98. And we are recommending that we go to the first bid due to the fact that bid 2 cannot meet our bid specs. I'll go on to the next one.
What
before-
portion of the bid specs are not met?
Well, I can basically read you the first statement of our bid specs. The City of Watertown invites qualified suppliers of public warning systems to respond to the following bid for siren warning systems. The bid must be compatible with the current federal commander operating system already in place. They took exception to that. Yes.
Yeah, there would have to be 2 separate situations there that you got ours
2 separate
now and
controllers
then-
at this time.
Right.
Okay, good question. The second bids that we received were for the installation process, as you guys can see in your handouts. The first bid was from Inglestead Electric in the amount of $31,250, and the second was also from American Signal at $50,000. So our recommendation is to go with Inglestead Electric for the installation of the 8 installation of the sirens, and then also go with the recommendation of Danco Emergency Apparatus for the sirens itself.
Okay, thanks, Don. What I'll do at this time, look for a motion and a second for
So moved.
discussion. Motion by Randy, second by Beth. Any questions you have for Don?
Will this be one motion to accept both?
Yes.
Okay.
What's your plans, Don, as far as, I mean, how are they gonna replace, I mean, do you have identified ones that are getting bad, or are you gonna do half section of town this year, half next year, or?
Sure, Randy. What we're going to do is we're working with Emergency Management Director and also our advisory committee as far as where we're going to replace these. We're probably going to be rescheduling our advisory committee meeting real soon. And the current plan is to do the lake, and after visiting with the mayor, we're also going to be doing the one next to the racetrack at this time as well. So those will be the first 8 that we'll do, and then next year, early spring sometime, we'll come back to the remainder of the 8 that's left.
Okay.
I'm all in favor of accepting Engelstad's bid, but any thoughts as to why they're 40% less almost than the other bid?
Not at all, Glenn, I don't know. Ingleside was just being local, I think they really,
And they've done all your other ones in
they've
the
done
past.
5 already
Yeah,
for us.
Utilities comes, hooks them up for you on the siren onto the pole. It's all pre-wired. Everything is done. They just dig the hole and drop it in, I believe.
Yep.
We could do that, Bruce. I think so.
I wanna-
Get one of those postal diggers.
I want to thank everyone here for expediting this so much faster. We were going to be in the process of going a long-term on this, but these really need to be replaced, and I appreciate Mayor for moving forward with this.
Okay, thank you.
Will this have to be bid again next spring then, the other half, or will this take care of both?
This will take care of both,
Yeah.
Dan.
Makes sense. Well, then it's Shelley that should be thanked, my gosh. She came up with the money.
She did.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for Don? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 19, thank you, Don.
Thanks.
Number 19, consideration of bids received for the wastewater UV upgrade equipment. And Shane, I'll let you take that.
Yeah, I'm taking one for Berger tonight. This is just for equipment only. This is for the UV upgrade equipment. We did only receive one bid. However, the consultant was very diligent in making sure that the identified potential bidders were informed of this project. And prior to receiving bids, they actually received a letter from one of those firms that stated that they weren't going to bid on this and why. And the reason why was because they couldn't meet the timeline that we needed to receive this equipment for installation. So ultimately, we ended up with one bid. This is in exactly where the budget discussions were for this equipment prior to opening the bids. So with that, we recommend that the council award this equipment so that we can keep it on the timeline for receiving it in time to do the phase two, which would be the installation, and we're going to take bids on phase two on September 24.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Dan, second by John. Any questions, Jeff or Shane?
Shane, on a $5,000 item, that doesn't really register with me, but on a $334,000 item, it does, that we only had one bid. Did we not give enough time, or the second question then is the price, it met budget, but is competitive?
It's very competitive. In fact, there was a couple of complicating factors with the other competitor, was that they would have to be required to do more work to the wastewater plant to make their equipment compatible with what we want to do. So that was one of the complicating factors. Bottom line is that there were two main competitors for this equipment, and the one was going to need to do substantial modifications in addition to what we wanted to do out at the wastewater plant. So this is in budget. It's right on track with where we thought we were, and the consultant did a lot of legwork in the beginning of this to make sure that they could design a project that allowed for multiple bids. Otherwise, they would have just had one proprietary supplier. So that it's as competitive as they could make it. This is a very unique style of project and unique equipment. There aren't very many manufacturers in the nation that even do this kind of work.
Any other questions for Shane? Hearing none, I will look for council action. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 20, authorization to advertise for bids for the 2016 petroleum products and street maintenance materials. Shane, if you want to do this, this is something that we do annually every year at this time for our budgeting purposes.
Yeah, we just brought forward this process and want authorization to bid it just as we have in the previous years for our maintenance and fuels.
Okay, so I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion on this. Motion by Mike, second by Glenn. Any questions?
Yeah, is there any factoring in when we ultimately get our agreements that says if fuel goes up X, then there's an increasing factor or a decreasing factor if fuel drops? Is there anything, or are they bidding a firm price at this point?
You know, honestly, I'm not familiar with it enough to know how firm that is.
Seems to me that we've had
They bid it
a
both ways.
discount on price per gallon, whether it goes up or whether it goes down, you'll always have that discount per gallon. I believe that's how we've done it the last couple of years, rather than say, well, you do it for $2.80 a gallon and go through the entire year, and if it goes down, you stay at $2.80, if it goes up, you're at $2.80. But what we've done in the past 2 years now is we've set the price so it's a discount against the everyday price that you see.
Okay, that sounds,
How do you do that with some of your other maintenance materials, though? I mean, is this just petroleum products?
yep,
It's not,
yep. Now, this does include an item like the crack sealing bid item. You know, we bid so many pounds of crack sealing material every year, so we know how many pounds we want.
Okay.
So then that's an actual hard number that
Yep.
comes out of this
okay.
process.
That's the things that I was thinking of, is it, you know, I mean, anything to do with, you know, as far as street maintenance, as far as oils and stuff that are used, or?
Correct, yeah, those items are
Yep.
included.
Okay, any other questions? I believe I have a motion and a second on the floor. I will look for council action. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Old business. I've got a couple updates I'd like to give under old business before we move on. September 11th, I believe we're having just prior to that, tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, tomorrow we're having a meeting with the softball group. Is that correct, Bruce? And what we're anticipating is that this particular group will do finalization of the plans, and we will go out for bids on September the 11th for the softball fields. I just kind of wanted to update you on that. We're expecting good things on that, and we've been assured we'll have grass for the 2017 ball period. You can tell I don't play a lot of softball either, can't you? So I don't golf, I don't play ball, I like to fish. Come on, give me a break. So anyhow, that's where we are on that. I also wanted to update you a little bit on the airport. You probably read in the newspaper. I've had conversations with the Department of Transportation out of Washington, D.C. It's gone extremely well, the way that we're anticipating it to go. We have now currently gone out for RFPs. We've sent those out to SkyWest, American Eagle, and a couple others. We'll be scheduling meetings with them in the next week or so. Todd and I will be flying out and meeting with those folks. That should go, I think, really well. We're certainly hoping so. We did get a letter from Great Lakes Airlines that actually asked us now for permission to leave on September the 30th. We have sent a letter out to the Department of Transportation that actually they need to kind of verify that and go through their people, their attorneys. We've gone through Stanton. You've looked that over. I would anticipate that we will actually formally request or grant their request that they will be done on September 30th. There's only one negative thing involved right now, and that is there might be an interim time when we do not have an airline, but we are asking the DOT to go out there and use their powers to be, and the granting that they've done for other cities, that they will put another airline in here until we actually get the RFPs back and get somebody signed on. So that is some of the things that's going on in the airport. If you got any questions, I can answer whatever you like. Tim, you want to come up and give us a little update on the community center?
Thank you, Mayor. Council, I was up there today. We had a little meeting this morning. I kind of gave a little update, and the mayor asked I come and give one to you guys. The steel building started to show up today for the pre-engineered piece, which is the forecourt standalone gym. That piece showed up today. The rest of it should be in tomorrow. They started block laying. They'll actually start laying block tomorrow in the areas which are the locker rooms and kind of the rec center area, where their two-level area will be. That part's getting started. They anticipate that to be done within 10 days. So towards the end of the month, they'll start on that back area behind the pool, which is where all the mechanicals are and stuff for the pool, that's blocked too. So they did have a little bit of delay on steel, and that's why, you know, it might seem like maybe things aren't progressing as fast as maybe we had anticipated. They are moving very well through the concrete, the underground. They had a little bit of hold up on that stuff with some steel anchor bolts and weld plates, things like that for the precast. Precast is still on board to be here the 1st of October, which is our biggest factor of getting this building dried in before winter. It's not going to happen, but if the precast can show up and they can get that up, that goes up very, very quickly. So anticipated at the 21st, 2 weeks from yesterday, that the steel building will start to go up where the forecourt gym is. So by the end of this month, you'll see some significant change. You'll see some stuff actually up and out of the ground. They got the whole, what they call Area A, which is the pool, that all that underground work is all the concrete and stuff, all the foundation walls, footings, all that stuff is in. Majority of what they call B and C, which is the rec center portion, the front and back of the rec center portion, I would say probably 2/3 to 3/4 of that concrete is in place. And then what they're calling Area D, which is the gyms, that area is, they made really good progress last week. The weather holds like it looks like it's gonna this week. They'll have a lot of that work in. They need approximately a week of set time on that concrete before they can start to put steel structure on there. So as the steel is here now and tomorrow, you know, they have to wait, and that has to cure long enough to get that in. So, so that's kind of where that 21st date comes from. But that'll go up pretty quickly once they get going on that. So, people start to see a lot more. They did get a lot of dirt work done. It looks very good out there. I encourage you guys to go out and take a look. It kind of, we've had a few comments from people that have sat through this group and in the design phase, you go out and see it on the ground, it doesn't look maybe as big as it is. I mean, it's a 100,000 square foot facility when we're all done. But, you know, once you start to get walls up, it'll really look bigger then and stuff. So I think the biggest issue we have right now is they got the precast. They've been harping on those guys hard, and they've cast them, so they have to cure and stuff. So a lot of that stuff is cast and being cast at the present moment. Is some of the structural steel members, which are inside the building. They've had some lead times on all their steel has been really the holdup on why this process hasn't been maybe moving as fast. I think all told, they anticipate we're maybe 2 weeks behind where they would like to be. We had a extremely aggressive front end of the schedule, trying to get the building up and closed before winter. Just the precast didn't allow that to happen. So, but I think everything's going good. We got good contractors, a lot of locals up there. They're doing a fantastic job, and Pitts is doing a good job of making sure everybody stays on schedule. We got a really good working group. So.
Perfect. You guys got any questions on what's going on up there? I can't believe you couldn't have gone down to Maholes and picked up some of those anchors and stuff to hold that big building.
Yeah. They're for instance, the building, the very, very west portion where they have some of them set up today. Some of them are poured, but the pads for the columns alone are 16 yards of concrete, so they're 2.5 feet thick by 16 foot square. I mean, these are monsters. So it's not just something you just pick up anywhere. You can't go to Menards and pick it up and stuff. So.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate it.
You bet.
And then we'll ask you for another update in a couple weeks and just kind of keep us up to speed on that. And I would encourage anybody to go up there. If you don't have a hard hat, they've got them for you. They can go up and just see. Is it Jason?
The Jasons. Yep.
Yeah.
There's 2 of them. So.
One of them. Yeah.
Yep.
Just if you don't know who you're talking to, just say Jason. They'll probably answer. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Thanks again, Tim.
You bet.
Okay, so that's what I've got for old business. Anybody else got anything they want to bring up under old business? Okay.
Mayor, did the leak get found on 19th Street?
You know,
The dreaded leak.
that is
Kind of our own little version of WikiLeaks here, I think.
Honest to God, I haven't talked to Steve or anybody if they found the leak or not. I don't know. I know they're working on it. I don't believe they have, that they're running out of time. Personally, I think they would have been much better off to dig up the whole dang road and replace it again for the cost and for the time that it's taken, but that's why I'm not an engineer, Shane. They, you know, they figure they can do that. But
So do we still pay the helium guys if we don't find the leak?
I walked into Casey's the other day and everybody was pretty squeaky over there, so.
But I don't believe they found it, have they, Shane?
I have not heard that they found it.
No, I
no.
think they would be jumping for joy and letting us know if they
Yeah,
found
I'm
it,
sure
so-
that would be
But
great.
they are running out of time, because I will tell you, when you go up to 19th Street, they're almost ready to tear out some landmarks up there. And I do want video of that when it comes out.
Did you say, where's that, Steve?
Yeah, it's like 19th Street North up there. There's a great couple of brick landmarks there. And
They've been a nuisance
I
for
want,
many years.
they're in the way.
I will tell you, that I went to Maholds and I bought some real heavy chain. So, but in all fairness here, I keep telling people that there's a lot of doubt that this is gonna get done by mid to late October, and I keep assuring them,
Right.
that's what we're being told.
Yeah, if you go up to the north side now, most of the road's done, the curb is laid, they're moving along substantially faster than they were. But we are gonna get some video, and we'll play that on up here when the time is right. So we'll just go along on that, okay? Well, could happen, yeah.
I would ask, Mayor, I'd like to maybe if we could do it tomorrow, if your schedule would, seriously, no, this is real. And Shane, I would like to meet with you gentlemen on some concerns that have continued to be expressed to me in regards to that northern section. We met out there last week, Shane and Sarah, and I appreciate that, but there's a lot of concerns. I'd like to go through those with you, and now's the time if we're gonna do something that we do it. Let's not wait till it's done.
I wasn't picking up what you were laying there, because I really thought that you were saying if my schedule permitted to go see the landmarks come down tomorrow, that's what.
Oh, they aren't coming down.
Oh, okay. So anyhow, no, we can do that. We can schedule a time and just give Kim a call and she'll line it up. Perfect. Any other new business?
Just a minor thing, Steve. I've heard this from a couple of folks regarding the TV part of this. When they watch, they have difficulty with some folks hearing them because of the proximity of the mic. So people are saying, step up to the mic a little bit when you talk. That would be helpful.
I think that's a good point, yeah.
Thank you.
Because I don't know about you guys, but I tend to watch these meetings over and over just because they are fun. Any other new business?
Can I have a taller chair so I'm as tall as the rest of you guys?
We have
Can you
some
do what?
cushions. We have some cushions.
Cushions.
for you.
Then I can get closer to the mic, see?
Any liaison reports? Hearing none, is there a need to go into executive session other than what I need to go into it for? I do need to go into executive session for some contract negotiations and some personnel issues.
No,
I don't expect anything to be moved upon tonight. So at this time, I'll look for a motion and a second to go into an executive session. Motion by John, second by Mike. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? We are in executive session.